Okay, woo! It worked. I just tried this process before. It wasn't working at all, so I'm kind of shocked that it actually worked. It caught me by surprise. Hello. The lighting's a little funky in here. I have a new setup, so excuse the funky lighting while I figure that part out. I don't know if that's gonna help. Maybe that helped a little bit. All right, it's real rinky-dink around here. It's real DIY. Anyways, thank you for waiting for me to get settled with my technical difficulties. But we're here, baby, so let's go. Okay, so the topic that I'm feeling called to speak on today is why are we so afraid to dance, which is a wonderful rabbit hole that we're going to fly down and explore, which leads us to a lot of other questions. It goes way beyond why are we afraid to dance? And the reason why I'm talking and speaking on this topic, why I'm feeling it's so alive, and I feel it alive in me a lot my whole life, but especially right now, I just made a post on my social media, Instagram and Facebook, speaking about what I have found dance, rhythm, sound, breath, the interlocking codes of them, what I have discovered in my own embodied experience have led to in studying technique for decades of dancing, drumming, singing, and breathing, moving my body, is that it all leads to a place that sort of transcends our codified structures. I'm finding the codified structures are creating a pathway and a portal to access the realms that kind of transcend codified vocabulary. So it's not like we want to just throw the vocabulary and the codes away. They're very helpful and useful, and they help us drop into or shift into expanded states of consciousness. So they're tools, they're sacred tools, and they're available to all humans. And so the thing is, though, that we have to be willing to actually utilize the tools. And for most of us, I'm totally getting ahead of myself. What I was saying was, in the post, I'm inviting people to come to a dance ritual in my home. Let's keep it simple. We'll start there. And so I have so many people message me because I share a lot of videos, and I talk a lot. I share videos of me dancing. I talk a lot about dance. I love to drum, use my voice, breathe, do yoga, these things. And every day it seems like I get messages from people who are like, I so want to move with you, and I am so fucking terrified. And welcome. If you are here with me, thank you for being in here with me right now. And if you watch the playback of this, thank you for being here with us in your own divine timing. I trust whoever sees this and wherever it lands, it's meant to be, and it happens exactly in the moment where it needs to. So, yes, what I was saying is so many people reach out and say something along the lines of, I so want to dance, and I am terrified. Okay? And this is real. So if you're one of those people, I am too. I mean, I'm going to name it. I'm terrified too. And I want to talk around the why. But let's talk a little bit about the why. First of all, where do I start? I have so many thoughts on this, and it's like there's a constellation of thoughts and understandings, and also downloads. I get downloads about this that help me see things from various perspectives and angles. So, first of all, I want to just speak on what dance actually, um, the feeling that it creates in the body when we don't feel safe and connected to our true expression. So it's hard for us to express our truth when we're not connected to it. So, and if we're not consciously aware that we're disconnected from our truth, there can be an anxiety and a malaise and a nervousness, timid, fear, terror, the whole spectrum that we can't necessarily follow back because we don't have the consciousness or the languaging around it, because we might be very far removed from being embodied in our truth. And if that applies to you, which, I mean, it's applied to me at various times in my life to varying degrees, you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you, okay? So the thing is that I say this all the time, so, at the risk of repeating myself, but we live in a world that wants us disconnected from our truth and wants us on a perpetual state of survival mode and perpetually feeling unsafe and insecure and self-loathing and afraid to be seen and heard and witnessed and take up space. And in a world that's always inviting us to assimilate and conform, being our unique self is like saying, I'm going to take out my freak flag and fly it for the whole world to see. Well, if we don't feel connected enough to our inner truth or safe even in our bodies for a whole spectrum of reasons, we can disconnect our mind and our consciousness from the body temple. And so there isn't a really strong back and forth relationship, and all aspects of our being aren't necessarily integrated, which again, this is probably the case for most people. And even skilled technicians, even many, many, many skilled technicians of dance are still disconnected from the expression of raw, vulnerable truth, because so much of dance today in the mainstream world is about performance, and it's about pleasing an audience. It's about doing the right moves, giving the right flavor and brand of sexy or strong or flexible or thin or wide, or, you know what I mean? It's like there's very rigid, there's a lot of rigidity in terms of like what we see in mainstream for dance. We don't see a lot of like free flow, ecstatic dance. We don't see a lot of sacred dance. We don't see a lot of folkloric dance. We see a lot of dance that can be capitalized upon and can make people feel very uncomfortable in wanting to move, because they're like, well, I don't look like that, and so I'm going to look stupid, so I'm not going to do that. And then in terms of people in female bodies, like, I'm having this thought around when we go to the club. I don't really go to clubs anymore, but I'm just going to give this example because it's a very common place where people move, people dance. And if you're in a club setting, excuse me, you guys know that my nose, I have a tissue right here. My nose always runs thanks to chemo. So, excuse me while I wipe my nose. Okay, so most people feel more safe to dance when they are in a club and when there's alcohol involved or herb or something to help soften and get out of the fucking judgmental inner critic mind that's like, oh my God, if you move, it's gonna be the wrong thing. You're not gonna be sexy enough. You're gonna look stupid. You're da-da-da-da. You guys know y'all know that voice. And that voice comes from an aspect of your being that just so wants to be loved and to be integrated into the whole, which is these are human needs. We have a need for connection. We have a need to be loved unconditionally and accepted in our authenticity and our truth. And that just doesn't really happen much in the world unless you come from like a family that really just showered and supported you with the unconditional loving acceptance and just was like, be you, baby. Like, you're the shit as you are. Like, keep going. Keep being that. Not many of us were raised in environments like that. And, and then we go into the school setting and year after year, we just assimilate. And the wild abandon of self-expression that kids just fucking naturally do. It's amazing. Like, kids are just like, let it rip. Yesterday I was walking down the beach and even I was like, God, I want to dance so much right now. But there's like so many people on the beach because it's spring break now. Probably it's like spring. And there was this little girl, very young, and she was like on all fours, shaking her butt. It was totally non-sexual. She was just being the wild animal that she was. The waves were hitting her. She was blissed out. She didn't give a fuck. She didn't have that in her mind yet of like, oh my God, people are going to see me and think I'm duh. She was just fucking in it to win it, feeling. And I was just in my mind, I was like, you fucking go, girl. Like, get it. And then I also had the thought that like, it's so sad that our world is now set up where a young child expressing authentically in an animal way, so many people could be uncomfortable with her expression because they could see it as like sexual. Immediately, if an ass is shaking, it's sexual, right? It's like, we live in such a society with such repression around being expressed in the body and the full range of expression in the body, and that like sexuality has such a rigid container around it, and then that automatically applies to like how we move our bodies. And being a female-bodied person, even a young little girl, it's like automatically people don't know what the fuck to do with that. They freak out. Oh my God, she's being sexual, hide her, put a towel around her. Not her parents weren't doing that. You know what I mean? That's kind of the consciousness. Or like pervy dudes. I hate the thought that pervy dudes could see that and be aroused. Like, that just makes me want to gag. And that, to me, is another sign of the imbalances of the society that we live within. That when sexuality is so repressed, there are so many implications around that. And so, think if you're a young child, you learn every year in school, everybody gets in step, and it's like there's less and less permission to be the wild child that you authentically are. And you start to think, oh my God, it's all subconscious shit. Or maybe it is conscious on certain levels where, we have to like, we alter ourselves to fit in. And I think truly that points back to this animalistic mammalian need to be an integrated part of the whole. But unfortunately, the paradigm in which we are living is the one that needs us to conform to fit in. Like in other paradigms, in other times, in the authentic expression was welcomed and it was seen as medicine and necessary. So there was no pressuring to conform because it was more like, you've come to earth with unique medicine. What is it? We want to know. We want to support that. We want to cultivate that. We want to help you be in full expression of your truth. Well, let's all mourn together. That's not the world I was born into. And maybe you had a different experience. And if you did, fuck yeah. Like, yes. So, I'm like, wow, I just took a little side trail. So, coming back to this idea of club, where say you're a female bodied person, say you are a woman, and you're in the club and your fucking jam comes on, right? And the dance floor is empty, but that's your jam. You're like, that's the shit you bump to when you're driving to work or cooking dinner or whatever, right? And you want to dance and you see the dance floor empty and you're like, I can't, I'm not going to go out there. Like, I'll wait. This is such the common thing, right? Like, I need like at least 2 drinks before I get out there. I've heard that thousands of times. No shame on that either. Like, of course, if we don't feel safe enough to express, we have our go-tos to experience altered states of consciousness. And so some people need the tool of alcohol. That's okay. I'm not judging it. And I've been there. I've needed to use substances to get loose enough to feel uninhibited enough to find full expression. And I'm lucky enough, I'm blessed enough to share community now for decades with dancers, drummers, movers, artists. And so it's very much like people who are way more comfortable being expressing. And so there's more comfort with that because it's more like flexed muscles, right? Like if you don't flex those muscles of self-expression, you have less access to them just by default. So I've had the blessing of like being in the club with all my homegirls. Like it's usually like any of us will be fine with going out and being the first freak on the dance floor, and like that's such a blessing for me personally, and I think for our community. And I notice that anytime any of us just goes in and starts it, it's like the dam breaks and then everybody comes in from the outside and they're just like, they're in it, they're grooving. But it's like somebody's got to break the ice and leave it to the fucking fringy freaks, right? What society would call us. Because we give less fucks about that because we have practiced being seen, moving, or just simply moving. And so this is this idea that so many of us don't feel safe dancing because we are so afraid of doing it wrong, being judged, being seen as like geeky. She doesn't have the right moves. Oh my God, she's so awkward. Oh my God, she's overthinking it. Oh my gosh, she's so slutty. Like, ew, see her twerking? Like the whole fucking gamut, right? Like we get judged if we're too sensual. We get judged if we're not sensual enough. We get judged if we have no rhythm, which I don't believe in the term no rhythm. It's not that I believe that we all have rhythm. We all have rhythm. If you have a heartbeat, if you came out of your mother's womb, you have rhythm, okay? You have blood coursing through you, you have breath, you have cells birthing and dying. You are rhythm, all right? So no excuse, no rhythm. You might not have conscious access to expressing rhythm through your body. Let's put it like that. So we run all the things of like, oh my God, I can't be seen. And then here's the other layer. The other piece is, do I want that kind of attention? So many women are afraid to get out and go into full expression on the dance floor in a club because they don't want that kind of attention from men. I mean, I'm sorry, men, if you're watching this, some of you just have no fucking clue. Many of you. I mean, I might venture to say most of you. And if you're not one of those guys, then fucking high five, I bow to you. But my experience, most dudes in clubs, not most, well, I hang out with different cool people. Like cool in terms of like, I think more evolved and progressive. But if you go to like a mainstream type club where it's just like dudes who are like getting faded you can kind of like see they're on the periphery with their drinks and watching. And like, it makes us feel vulnerable as women to go in and fucking get our swerve on, which is what we want to do, because so many of us have pent up energy that needs to come out. Literally, it's medicine. It must come through. It's our expression. Here's our chance, right? For so many people who don't tap into movement or just authentic emoting and expression. And then we have to deal with the male gaze. And we have to deal with the indoctrination of, if you're in a club and say it's like jams that you love, we'll just say like there's a lot of pressure for women to also perform sexy, right? And like sexy in our world looks a really specific way. There's really rigid parameters around what sexy is. And like, so even if you want to go fucking off and be a wild banshee, there might not even be space for that, because the expectation is like, dance sexy to this, right? And this is all things that we're not consciously naming. It's just kind of like, it's just kind of ingrained in us, all these social codes, social etiquette codes, the unspoken codes. And these are all symptoms of living in a world that doesn't necessarily have healthy relationships with having people be fully expressed in safe ways. So what do women do in clubs? They often get faded, so they can just be like, I'm gonna go off and I don't give a fuck about these dudes. Or, it's like it makes people feel a little more like strong and free and independent and like giving less fucks. And there can be implications to that too, because when we're faded on alcohol, we have less discernment. And so we can kind of have a warped sense of what's actually happening around us. And then our safety can be compromised, actually. And I've seen that happen a lot, and I just want to say too, like, shout out to the dudes that are respectful. And I want you to know, I do see you, and you're so valued, and thank you, like, thank you for having some consciousness around the power of a woman moving her body. So I want to also kind of link this into wounding around the witch wound. So we have the woman wound, which for so many of us in female bodies, you have like female genitalia. For so many of us, it just doesn't feel safe to be embodied. Like, forget the idea of dancing. Does it feel safe for you to be embodied in the world now? Like if you're walking down the street at night alone, do you feel safe to be embodied as a female? If you're at home if you're at home alone at night, and do you feel safe to be embodied? If you are a survivor of sexual trauma or domestic violence or child abuse, or like any kind of trauma, do you feel safe to be embodied? That's very, very, very real. And so if we don't feel safe to be embodied, we can do a lot of disassociation from feeling the body temple. We're like, I don't want to feel the body. The body is not a safe place to be. And feeling it reminds me of it triggers my unresolved trauma. So a lot of people just completely avoid the fact that they're in a body, and there's a warped relationship of mind, consciousness, soul with a wounded body temple with unresolved issues or trauma, or even just childhood trauma of you're not enough, you're not lovable as you are, you must change and adapt. The love coming at you is conditional, and you have to perform and be a specific way in order for you to receive their love. So it's like you alter your whole being just to simply get your human need, biological need for unconditional love and acceptance and being part of the family unit. There's that wounding too. So if you've spent a lifetime adapting and becoming mutable to please people, to unconsciously get your need for love and connection met, you can be completely out of relationship with your truth. And therefore the relationship with the body. Then let's add the piece of the beauty program and all the rigid expectations around like your body color, the color of your skin, the texture of your hair, your height, your weight, the shape. Are your breasts too big? Are they too small? Are they saggy? Your belly, your triceps, do they jiggle? Your ass, your thighs, the shape of your feet, your vagina, the shape of your vagina, like everything. We've been broken down and objectified into all these specific parts. And if it doesn't match the mainstream beauty standard, we internalize that. And then we're constantly, perpetually running this story that becomes it's just a story, it's a program, but it's so ingrained in us that it becomes our truth. So we don't even know what our fucking inner truth is because we're so caught up in the stories and in the programs and in the traumas and in the wounds. And it's like, how do I even access? I don't even know who the fuck I am. I mean, I have had that experience. Who am I? I don't even know who I am. That's real talk. And if you can relate and you've never just said that out loud, dude, I get it. I went a long time not being able to admit that, even to myself. So much of life is like, dude, if I'm really real, they're going to fucking think I'm nuts. They're going to think I'm crazy, right? Thank God that my soul, ever since I was all the way back, as a young person, my soul expressed through movement. Thank God. Dance has been my anchor my whole life. Dance has literally saved my life more than once. Those are other times, other stories. But I, in the beginning, always just let it rip through dance. It was my therapy. It was my medicine. I didn't consciously know any of this. I just knew in a very dysfunctional home where I often didn't feel safe, and when you're a kid, you don't have languaging around this. You just know something is off. And now I'm like, okay, I didn't feel physically or emotionally safe. So my coping mechanism, thankfully, my body instinctively fucking moved. And so it was just, I would just go. And I mean, I'm pretty sure I was experiencing other states of consciousness, and I would always feel better having danced. And so, having an experience that feels good, you want to repeat it. So I would continue to come back to dance. And it just made me feel so alive and so expressed and just so good, So anyways, I want to come into this idea of what I was writing about in my post on Instagram was that I have studied ever since I was about, I think I was like 19 when I devoted my life to dance in college. I became a dance major, and that is the moment where it was just this pivot. I was spiraling into annihilation and self-destruction. I was so disconnected from myself. I was abusing substances. I was abusing myself in having relating with people in a way that didn't honor my body temple at all. I didn't know what the concept of self-love was. I didn't understand self-love, self-worth. I didn't have a sense of self. I was lost. And, prior to me becoming a dance major, I was an English major, which I chose English because I was like, well, I love creative writing. I was just like, I expressed myself in that way. I didn't even know there was a dance major. Had I known, I would have gone beeline to that. But at that time, I was like raving my ass off. I was partying really fucking hard. And I was dancing all night long at raves, just like a fucking wild banshee. It was like, finally, I found a place. And back in the 90s, raves were basically what I think was like dance rituals. Like people need to gather in community. People need rhythm. People need dance. People need breath. People need to emote and express vocally. And in raves, it was like anything goes, and the fucking weirder and wilder, the better. Like, wear your craziest outfits, dance like the freak that you are, and we love you, babe. Plur, right? Plur Life. So if you feel me on Plur Life, like, what's up? So yeah, when I found the dance major, I totally pivoted my life, and I shifted into a devotion of like, oh my God. I've talked about this recently on here in other videos of meeting my dance. I call them high priestesses. They were my dance professors, and they were these elder, fully embodied, fully expressed women who just, they became my elders. They became my mothers. They became the ones initiating me. And it was all in this unspoken thing, we were having the experience in a new paradigm, in a new structure, in a new setting that's called dance major. And that led me down this path of studying folkloric styles, sacred dance, Afro-Cuban, Afro-Puerto Rican, and belly dance, and a little bit of West African, and different styles of folkloric drumming, dancing, singing, and learning these techniques and practicing these techniques in ceremony, and then having the experience where you see that the interlocking of rhythm, dance, sound creates this portal where we transcend technique into a place of, it's like transcendence, and into this full expression in this flow, which is like this perpetual state of, it's hard to find languaging for me it's hard for me to put words to an experience that goes, it goes beyond words. It goes beyond structure. It is. And what I've experienced through embodiment is that we all have access to it. And I want to help people access that because it's like when you go into this place, you start to access aspects of yourself you didn't even know existed. And you start to realize, wow, I am this sacred, divine energy, life force that is inhabiting a body. And the more I develop my relationship with my body temple, I realize that my body is the sensing device, and it's passing information in and out of the environment that it's in, and it's speaking to my consciousness, and it's my soul's spacesuit. It's my soul's way to be in the world. And so when I am fully expressed, pleasure and bliss and ecstasy are components of full expression. And sensuality is an aspect of that. And so when we're talking about intimacy, whether it's intimacy with ourselves, whether it's intimacy with nature, whether it's intimacy with another human being or other human beings, sensuality, authentic sensuality, expressing it is a different flavor than performative sensuality and duplicating or replicating what we saw on a video or what we saw on porn or what we saw in a magazine or what we saw on a runway or what we saw in the club. And what I find when I'm in the portal of expressing sensuality, that many things come through me to, like, if there's unresolved energies or there's stuck energies or there's things that are like creating blockages in me, I notice that when I am in that space of full expression, those things are moving through. So authentic expression, I think in its most primal form, doesn't look any particular way. It doesn't look like what society's rigid definition of sensuality or even sexuality, sexual expression is. Excuse me. So, expressing sensually is terrifying for so many of us because we don't really have a reference point, and if we're talking about things that are uncharted territory thus far, and thus far in your life, no matter where you're at in your life, how many years in you are, it can feel totally daunting and confusing and scary and intimidating. And especially if you have some traumas around expressing your sensuality or sexuality and things that may have happened to you in the past where you have blockages, or say you have body image issues, or, it's like the whole spectrum of things that I named before. If there's blockages there, it hinders our ability to express sensuality. So I am a strong proponent of creating safe, sacred containers for us to explore and access these energies in a way where it's not for anyone else. It's not for someone who might be watching me in a club. It's not for somebody who is watching me in a bedroom. It's not for somebody who's watching me on Instagram. When we create these dance rituals, we are in community agreeing that we are holding a safe and sacred container for the spectrum of what wants to come through. And so it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and it requires a level of willingness, curiosity, self-love, self-care, self-devotion of, like, you might be sitting there watching this and going, I don't even know who the fuck I am. I might be a total replication of all the imprints that were placed upon me. I might be totally stuck in my wounding. I might be totally looping my traumas. And I just feel like I'm wearing shackles, and like it feels dangerous to explore my expression. I don't know what's going to come through, what will happen. And I believe that when we create a safe, sacred container, even if it's alone, maybe if it's not done in community, I like both. I like doing it all on my own, and I kind of like, also know how to be my own facilitator because I've been doing this my whole life. I know how to facilitate the space for me. I also personally love to show up in a space where I can just fucking go. And usually what I'm doing nowadays is I am the facilitator. So I'm participating, but I'm also facilitating, which is a different role than a full-on participant. And something really special happens when we create a safe container with others to explore the full range of expression and to see what comes through and to drop into the place of no judgment. We invite the inner critic to sit in the passenger seat, become the sacred witness of what wants to come through the body temple. And I truly believe that this practice is necessary for a healthy planet. I am a strong believer in, it's like these terms get thrown around kind of like they're trendy terms of like movement medicine, drum medicine. But when I say it, I truly, truly, truly mean not cliche, trendy hashtag, but like drum medicine, breath medicine, sound, toning, vocalization, singing, chanting, whatever you want to call it, medicine, dance or movement expression, medicine, nature, medicine. These are the things that are helping us tap into the natural elements within our body. And when we do it in community, there's deep healing that happens because this is what humans have done for hundreds and thousands of years. And only about 10 to 12,000 years ago, when the dawn of patriarchy and civilization came along, where these practices began to have to, they were extinguished by the dominant system because these ways of tapping into expanded states of consciousness and medicine for the community were threatening to a dominant power system. So it was like, what are all the ways that we can control and oppress and disempower? Because we can't have, it's easier to control people who are disconnected, and that's real. We see that in our food, we see that in our water, we see that in our air, we see that in the way that we've been herded into cities and disconnected from the earth and the cycles and the seasons. So I see that there's people in here. I'm wondering if you have any comments or any questions, any feedback. I want to circle back to my topic. Why are we so afraid to dance? And ultimately, it's like we are so afraid to be seen in our truth when we have wounding around being fully accepted for our true expression. And, if we have deeply unmet needs for being seen, heard, valued, understood, connected in community, unconditionally loved, unconditionally accepted, these are all human universal needs. And when they're chronically unmet over a period of time, the disconnect happens, and then we don't feel safe to even, be embodied. And so many of us just become invisible. Like I was saying before, so many people write to me on Instagram and they're like, I want to video myself and like post it, and I'm too scared. And then so many other people are like, I want to dance, but I'm too scared. Like literally no camera, no onlookers, just dancing. Many people are afraid to just move. And it's like movement, when you're moving, you're like, oh yeah, I'm in this body. And it brings you into the spectrum of feeling. And we know when we come into the spectrum of feeling, discomfort comes along with comfort, or let's say pleasure and pain. And so, but the more we access wild expression in our unique flavor, the more we can access pleasure. and an authentic pleasure, an authentic sensuality. Let me see. It looks like a comment came through. Hi, Kimberly. Oh, I'm so glad you're here with me. Yay. Thank you for being here. Thanks for that rainbow, too. Hi, Courtney. So I have a lot more to say on this, but I see I'm already at 45 minutes. So one last thing I want to say in terms of like, why are we so afraid to dance? And why are we so afraid to be seen? It's, do we feel safe enough to be vulnerable in our truth, to be authentic? Are we really willing to run the risk of having people not love us in our truth? And ultimately, I kind of think dance is a metaphor for that. Do you feel confident and connected enough to your deep inner essence that you can show up in your truth and in integrity with your inner truth? And if it's not landing in certain ways in your life, are you resourced enough to deal with the implications of that? That's a big question. That's a big question. I think that's kind of what it comes down deeper into, and like, are you willing to be seen? And if you're not, if no is the question to all of these, there's medicine in there for you. That's an inquiry. That's an invitation to go in deep and do some self-reflection. Why am I so afraid to be seen? If this is your posture, if this is often your posture, this is protecting your heart. No judgment. So many of us do this, or it's also a posture of defeat. It takes so much courage to have the shoulders come into neutral and the head lifted and the heart open, because you're signaling to the world, my heart is open. I am here. This is also for women who don't want attention on their breasts. They do this too. Or if the breasts are really heavy, they do this too. That can be a physiological challenge, right? A physical challenge. But here, or the way that we dress our bodies, do we cover because it doesn't feel safe? Or also maybe we have internalized judgments around our bodies being seen. They're not going to love me if they see my belly and my double chin. I have that one come up a lot. So let's see. Courtney said, "Oh, that's me. I'm so afraid to be seen, but equally dying to be seen." Exactly. See? And Taylor too. So me too. Listen to me. I want to say this. It wasn't until I was going through cancer, you guys, where you goddesses, you gods, you divine beings, where I was bald, bloated from chemo, no eyelashes, no eyebrows, no breasts, burnt to a crisp from radiation, where I was like, fuck it. I just started putting myself out there, and I was like, dude, I could die soon. I can't die not having been fully expressed in my authenticity. I can come on here and, post the filtered photos when I hit the right angle and feel good about myself. But am I willing to put that photo up where it's like, dude, this is me? Might not be your brand of mainstream beauty, but guess what? I'm in a motherfucking body. And to me, that shit's beautiful. And so see me. And here's the thing. So many women, we police each other and we berate each other and we judge each other. And I'm guilty of this too, because I still have those thoughts. It's all programmed and conditioned thoughts. That's not our true nature. We are not competitive and catty like that in our true, when we are in our power. That comes from our wounding and our disempowerment. But we do that because we've internalized the patriarchal mindset. So if a woman shows up and she's posting selfies on her Instagram, oh, she's narcissistic. Oh, she's so full of herself. She thinks she's so fucking pretty. And then under that is like, God, I wish I felt confident enough to do that for myself too. But then I have to deal with like, what if people don't hit like? What if people think I'm ugly? What if they see my fucking double chin? You know, and it's like, we're so afraid to just fucking show up. And it comes back to the unconditional self-love and like ride or die for yourself. And so, yeah, for me on social media, it became this tool of empowerment where I was like, dude, I'm going to write about what's real. I'm going to post pictures of what's real. And I'm going to create art. And my art might not be freaking mainstream beauty standard of whatever dance or female body shape or whatever. And I was like, fuck it. And I still have the thoughts. I still have the thoughts today of the programming. I still have the thoughts today, even when I was being annihilated and I was having these awakenings and this oneness and these expanded states of consciousness. It was like, I'm here. I survived all that. And I'm like, wow, the patriarchal fucking programming is still there. It's not as strong. The voices are still there. The stories are still there. They're not as powerful. I have way more conscious contact with my truth. And now I can have the dialogue when I look in the mirror and I see my belly and the thoughts come up. Well, now I can have a loving, compassionate conversation with the part of me that's worried. Oh my God, you know, what are they going to think? Or all that shit. Now I understand, oh, that's not my truth. That was a truth. That was a program imposed upon me, not a truth. Program imposed upon me that I internalized, because the whole world has sort of internalized these as becoming our truths. And then it disempowers me. And then I'm never enough, never enough, never enough. Afraid to be seen because I'm afraid of judgment. And it's like when we're afraid of judgment, what we really want is connection and to be seen and loved for who we truly fucking are. And that's a universal human need. We have a need to be seen. We have a need to be heard. We have a need to be understood and valued. So now it's like I call Instagram a virtual ritual space, right? It's a place where you can do a lot of self-reflection. You can see all your fucking shit and all your shadow come up there, and you can do a lot of healing and changing and empowerment there. And you can start to be real on there and take little steps to be seen and like big up people who are doing that as well. Follow people who are doing that as well. Share people who are doing that as well. Like and comment on their posts. Like, let's create a new paradigm. That's why our souls came here. Our souls came here because they're like, fuck this, dude. This is not a sustainable system. And we are out of right relationship with humanity and the earth. And our souls were like, no, we're going to do something about it. And so being embodied is a revolutionary act. Tapping into your truth, even if you're like, I don't know who the fuck I am, honestly. Taking the journey is a revolutionary act. It's an act of self-care. It's what your soul came here to be. You came here to have the experience of, you know, disconnect and disempowerment and programming for a sacred purpose so that you could wake up in it. You get to wake up this lifetime if you so choose. You get to have the transformational act of empowerment if you so choose. And then guess what? When you do it, you are broadcasting through the multiverse. It is safe for you to be you, meaning the other people in your life who come in contact with you. You don't have to be a fucking preacher and tell the world how to do it, even though I'm sitting here and I'm doing that. I don't consider myself a preacher. I just seriously feel like people need to know these things. And if I can help people wake up and find the tools, and they're ready for it and it's time for them, then here you go. You know what I mean? Like, let's go. Let's do this. But you don't have to, well, maybe instead of saying, you don't have to drag people to this practice. When you do the inner alchemizing and the inner transformation, you are silently impacting everything in the world. People think this hippie woo-woo conscious, like shit to say oneness. The fact of the matter is that we are literally all one thing. We are all part of planet Earth. We just happen to be separated from Earth, but she hugs us down with gravity. We are all the same thing. And so when I'm doing my inner alchemy, I'm actually impacting the whole on many, many dimensions. And so if I choose to be an embodiment of my truth, I am like a lighthouse transmitter, transmitting. When people come into contact with me, they can sense it. Oh, I can be myself with her. That might not mean everything's fucking hunky-dory between you and me, because I might say some shit that might totally piss you off. It might trigger you, or you might not like some of the things I have to say. But I do want to transmit that being in our truth is key to thriving. And being in our truth is knowing the truth of who we truly are. And everything in our lives is calling us home to that. All the shitty circumstances in your life are literally golden opportunities that designed by your soul for you to lean in, because it's uncomfortable. So it's calling your attention. And it's saying, look here. All the stuff we call pain, it's all opportunities. Look here, I have medicine inside of me. Have a relationship with me. Get curious, be inquisitive. I have something I want to share with you so that you can grow and expand and evolve. Everything is happening for us. And I know you're saying you're a white person and you're privileged and that shit doesn't work for me. I get it. And I understand that many people are victimized on this planet by a dominant system. And what I'm saying is, perhaps your soul came here to have an awakening experience within that. You had to experience the horrific atrocity. I'm not going to downplay anything here, and I'm horrified by what the dominant system does. And yes, I am a white person. But I truly, truly believe that there's something about the third dimension that it feels real, but I believe on a soul level, it's actually more of a dream. And it feels real. And we come in and we commit to the roles. But here's the thing. Notice how the dominant system wants us all fighting each other. When everyone's fighting, humanity is divided. Isn't that interesting? What a clever way to disempower humanity. Have them all fight amongst themselves. Then they can't actually focus on the place where we all should be focused. We got our shit together and unified and figured out a pragmatic, a real way for us to unify. Dude, real flipping script right there, where everybody wins. Not just the fucking white people. Everybody. There is enough to go around for everybody. I love how I came on here to talk about dance and I'm like going off about this. I guess it's all related, right? It's fractal. I'm almost at 60 minutes. I love y'all. Oh, thank you, Kimberly, for seeing the morning sunshine dances. Living vicariously, you can do it too. Just go to a window in your home and dance, or go outside, even better. I bow to you. Thank you for dropping in, and blessings. Peace. Let's see how to end this.